Okay, I think everything is working. I can't hear myself on the on YouTube. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. All right, very good. So we are live. It is this week's Q&A, and we are talking about the liver. So if you missed my little survey, I had a survey in there that asked if you are more interested in blood sugar, liver, and I can't remember what the third one was, but liver was definitely the one that ruled. Now, when I logged on here, I saw there were a lot of questions that I didn't even know were there. But I want to make sure that I go through some of them that I did see first, and then I'll catch these other ones as well. So one of the questions I had was, tell me how a castor oil pack works. Someone had been trying to get castor oil packs for a while. Finally got one, which is great. I meant to bring mine over here to demonstrate for the YouTube people, but I don't have it with me. Anyway, or if you were on Facebook Live, you can see me. I forget. I'm used to doing my podcast. Anyway, castor oil is something that's been used for centuries, internally and externally. Now, I don't recommend it internally, but externally, when you apply it to your skin, it's quickly absorbed. It's actually absorbed into the bloodstream and carried throughout the body, and it helps to break up matter. And so Dr. Christopher at the School of Natural Healing, he would apply it to anything, the liver especially, because it's absorbed. It helps to break up any sluggish bile and help things flow better through the liver. But even arthritis, swollen areas in the body, edema, just to help break that up. So he always said that all disease is caused from constipation, and we immediately think of constipation like not being able to go to the bathroom, but he's talking about constipation throughout the body. So if you have constipation in your blood vessels, that is one thing that leads to heart disease, right? You have a sluggish constipation in your lymph nodes, then you're not eliminating toxins from the body. And so it could be something that is just not moving the way that it should. Constipation in the lungs, we're not making the exchanges of gas. You get the idea. Anyway, so when we use castor oil as a fomentation, that is like we're calling it castor oil packs. What we're doing is we're applying it to the skin wherever. I like to put it on my liver. So I don't know if the camera's reversed, but I'm on my right hand side, right under the breast on those ribs. Your liver starts there. It goes across to a little bit middle of the other side of your body. That's where it tapers off, and then it gets really big and expands down over on your right hand side and even around the back. So the castor oil packs you get from like Queen of Thrones. I used to be an affiliate with them. They dropped me because I wasn't doing enough videos supporting them. But you can apply the castor oil to the pad. Any kind of natural cloth material will work. Their castor oil packs are great because they're nice and big. They're leather on one side and cotton on the other side, so that you don't get castor oil on your other clothing or your bedding if you sleep with it on. And they have a nice strap that's elastic, so you can tie and put it, really keep it secure. Because castor oil is staining, it will stain your clothes or your sheets or whatever it touches. I couldn't figure out why the tops of my underwear were getting really grungy colored. It was the castor oil hitting the top of my underwear. Maybe that's too much information, but castor oil, it sinks into your skin. If you put it on your liver, it sinks in, it helps break up matter in the liver. Now, if you have other boils or things on the body, you can put it anywhere. You can put it on a swollen shoulder, a swollen knee, your foot. A lot of people, so constipation of the GI tract is extremely common, especially for anyone with an autoimmune thyroid condition like Hashimoto's. Usually Graves is sped up, Hashimoto's is slowed down. Thyroid slows everything down, including digestion. And so for anyone who is suffering from those symptoms, putting a castor oil pack over the lower abdomen is a fabulous way to get things moving. You can sleep with it on overnight. You can put it on in the morning when you're getting dressed and eating breakfast and things like that. You just want to clean your skin up really good. Dr. Christopher recommended wiping the skin with apple cider vinegar to clean the skin when you're finished, just so you don't stain your clothing when you're finished. Now, it is something that is extremely safe to do. You can even use it on children. So it's really great if you have a child who has constipation. For someone who has a chronic condition like autoimmune disease, I recommend they put it on the liver one day and the lower abdomen the next day. The liver the next day, the lower abdomen the next day. That way we're breaking up matter here to get things flowing from the liver. And then we're breaking things up in the digestion, in the digestive tract to get things moving out. Because remember, when we release those toxins, if we're not going to the bathroom, we're not pooping, those toxins are reabsorbed and carried back to the liver. And what happens is your liver, we were going to talk about liver. So here we go. So your liver, when it doesn't have time to focus on a toxin, it doesn't recognize a toxin, any kind of thing like that. It just goes, I don't know what this is. I don't have time to process it. I'm going to wrap it up in mucus and stuff it in fat. This leads to fatty liver disease. So when it finally does have time to work on that, it pulls it out, it breaks it up, and it passes it, it treats it with different chemicals, right? Which can make it even more dangerous than it was when it came into the body. But it's still going to keep it wrapped up so that it passes through your digestive tract without hurting you, because its job is to protect you. It's going to coat it so that it's going to pass through. However, if you are not going to the bathroom, ideally 3 times a day, 3 times a day, I'll talk about that in a second. It's going to sit in your GI tract where you have enzymes that are there to break things down. It wants to break down food molecules into amino acids, fatty acids, other phytonutrients that it needs. Those microbes, they're going to eat all of those foods. So they're going to use these enzymes to break things apart. Well, if I break something apart that is a hazardous chemical, I get in there, I break it apart. Now I'm exposed to those chemicals, and those chemicals are going to go reabsorbed into my bloodstream and carry back up to the liver. And then that can cause more liver, not only in the intestinal tract, but also in your bloodstream, in those blood vessels, and in your liver. So we want to make sure that we are pooping, especially when we're using a liver castor oil pack or something like that. We've got to get it moving out. So why do I say you need to poop 3 times a day? That's assuming you eat 3 large meals a day. Many of my clients only eat 2 meals a day. But remember, it depends on you and your system. Don't follow what somebody else is doing. Listen to your body and do what is right for you. I threw myself into a flare. Y'all can see my eye. That's my sign. We talked about this a year ago. I have a thyroid condition where I get what's called TED, or thyroid eye disease. When I don't take care of my body, I don't take care of my adrenals. The adrenals and the thyroid are so closely tied, and my eyes will tell on me every time. Anyway, when we eat, the food goes into the stomach starts to expand. A signal is sent from the stomach to the ileocecal valve, which is down there by your appendix in your lower right-hand side. That nerve tells that valve to open up. Let's push some food through the intestines. Well, if it's pushing things through the intestines, then it needs to come out, right? So every time our stomach expands, that signal is sent down there and things are told to move along. If you have a sluggish system closely tied to something like Hashimoto's, the thyroid slows everything down. That includes the cilia, that includes the motility, so that we are not making the contractions to pass things through the intestines. We're very sluggish. So for someone in that condition, it's very important to use herbs. Medical disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm not treating, prescribing, diagnosing. I am educating. So do your own due diligence. There are some herbs that can help with that. And so you want using castor oil pack over the abdomen. That's perfectly safe. There's no herbs involved. There's nothing that's going to interact with your other medications and things like that. When you're looking at herbs, make sure there aren't going to be any interactions. There are books you can look at. You can always ask me in the comments, things like that, and I can help you, direct you to places to find information like that. But there's an Ayurvedic herb, Triphala. Triphala is a wonderful herb. It's found in a lot of thyroid supplements as part of it, because it does help with the motility. It helps to get the system moving back along. There are things like Cascara sagrada. Cascara sagrada is one of those herbs that is safer than some of the others as far as causing gas or cramping or things like that. So that can help move things along. Anyway, I'm digressing. That's not liver. So we're talking about liver today. So another question I had, so now that we covered how the castor oil pack is, how does alcohol affect the liver? So last week we talked about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. is we all have heard about alcoholics who get cancer and things like that. What does alcohol really do to the body? Well, first, let's talk about what is considered moderate drinking versus what is considered binge drinking. So moderate drinking is 1 drink a day for a woman. It could be 2 to 3 drinks a day for a man. Why? Different body sizes, different muscle mass, and different amounts of water in the body. The larger the muscle, the larger the amount of water in the body. And so that's usually why men can tolerate a little bit more than women. A heavy drinker would be, for a woman, more than 3 drinks at a time or more than 7 drinks a week. That would be a glass of wine every day, would be considered a heavy drinker. For a man, it's more than 4 drinks at a time or more than 14 drinks in a week. And for binge drinking, for a woman, is 4 drinks in under 2 hours or 5 drinks in under 2 hours for a man. What is considered a drink? It could be a 5-ounce glass of wine. It could be a glass of beer, any of those kinds of things. So if you think of somebody, if a couple of nights a week, you have a glass of wine. Maybe you have on Friday night, you go out and you have a martini that has 3 shots of liquor in it, and you have a beer that's pretty heavy. And then you go to a party the next night where you have 2 glasses of wine and a mixed drink. That you are considered a heavy drinker if you do something like that. So glass during the week, a glass of wine or a beer, and then going out and partying on Friday night and Saturday night would be considered a heavy drinker. And so you have to be really careful about things like that. So when we drink alcohol, small amounts are absorbed in the mouth and the esophagus. The alcohol is very easily absorbed in the stomach because it's a liquid. There's nothing that we really need to break down. If you are eating some food, that can help dilute the alcohol, but really it just delays any emptying when you have it with food. But I know a lot of people, they do like to eat food to make sure they don't get too queasy too fast, right? Because if you've ever noticed, if you've ever had drinks on an empty stomach, it can hit you pretty fast, right? Or if you're in a hot tub or something like that, that speeds everything up. The metabolizing goes a lot faster and it hits you a lot sooner. So the primary site of alcohol absorption is in the upper small intestine. So then everything is carried over to the liver, where there are several different enzymes that act on the alcohol to help break it down. And so I don't want to go into all the different chemicals because I like to keep it kind of simple for you. But we have different microbes that get injured from the alcohol. We have different enzymes that can also get injured from this, and it creates, I wasn't going to do chemicals, but acetaldehyde, which is a known carcinogen. And so what's happening is we're using these enzymes that actually are known carcinogens, which can lead to cancer when we're having these drinks. Now, think back, before I keep going, think back, depending on how old you are, I know how old the person is that put this in. If you are in your 20s and you go out and party on the weekends, you can go out and party and get up early the next morning and go to school. And maybe you're not feeling so great, but you can definitely function. In your 30s, you go out, you do exactly the same thing. You're not feeling really good the next day, and you may not even be able to go to work. You do that in your 40s, it gets even worse. It's harder to get up. You probably aren't going to work the next day. You might not even be able to get out of bed. The older you get, it just affects us differently as we get older. Why? Because we are doing several things to our body all the time. And when we are doing these things, it's kind of like, I use this all the time for several different things, but banging your knee every day. So if we go out and we're having a drink every day, or we're having a heavy amount of alcohol every weekend, eventually our body isn't going to recover as well as it did before. Like I said, the enzymes are broken down, forming toxic substances like acetate. So you've heard about acetate and nail polishes and things like that, right? So we create these chemicals that are broken down, and they can even affect tissues in the brain. So we start injuring brain tissue, we start injuring the pancreas as well. And so we want to be really careful about alcohol. And like I said, as you get older, it can create more and more damage. The body just doesn't recover as well. And then the hits just keep on coming. Our liver I can't remember how many different processes at the same time. It does over 400 things. And so that's quite the micromanager, right? Doing all these things at the same time. And we're exposed to so many things that we would not have been exposed to um, thousands and thousands of years ago. Think about all the man-made chemicals. I was talking to someone the other day who lives here locally, and their land backs up to a field where someone had planted corn this year, and they watched, their children were like, oh cool, look at the plane. It was a crop duster spraying the corn. And so he was so glad that his children were inside the house. But I mean, people are still spraying all this. We weren't spraying chemicals on food, right? Well, it just how it happens that this person's chickens all died. So whatever they were spraying on this corn was definitely something that was toxic, and that was sprayed on fields of corn that unfortunately are being fed to either animals, and then people are going to consume the animals, or fed to humans and people. It's going to injure us. And so we're being exposed not only to alcohol when we drink the alcohol, we're being exposed to chemicals in our foods that were not there thousands of years ago. Add in chemicals in our cleaning products that weren't existing thousands of years ago, our skincare products. And you can see all these things that just accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. And so unfortunately, people are getting diagnosed with liver diseases and things like that sooner and sooner and sooner. Another thing from thousands of years ago, we were only eating real whole foods, right? We didn't grind everything down into flour and processed sugar and all of these things. We weren't drinking sugary drinks. You may have had some honey, you may have had something that you could combine, but it wasn't all of this processed food. Processed food is one of the biggest things to injure the liver. And so we have to be really careful. It's so important. Whether or not you eat animal products, that's a whole different story. What are you eating on a regular basis? What are you drinking on a regular basis? A sweetened drink is something we should not be having at all. Even an artificially sweetened drink, those are chemicals. We don't need those chemicals in our body. We don't need to add that to our liver. So back to the alcohol, 30 seconds after I'm pulling up a cheat sheet here. 30 seconds after consumption, alcohol enters the bloodstream and travels to the brain. So 30 seconds. 5 minutes after you drink it, it enters the stomach where some of it still remains. You can smell some of it on the breath. You can smell it from the lungs, as well as some of it is being evaporated. 20 minutes after a drink, 90% has reached the small intestine and the pancreas and the liver to be metabolized. And it can take up to 12 hours after consumption to detect alcohol in the urine. So 12 hours later, it can still be detected in the urine. So the average ounce of liquor takes about an hour, a pint of beer about 2 hours, a glass of wine 3 hours. And if you have several mixed types of drinks, it can take several hours for those to be metabolized. It can be tested in the saliva for up to 8 hours, in the urine anywhere from 12 to 80 hours later. That's how long the alcohol stays in the system. On your breath, up to 24 hours, and in your hair, up to 90 days. So alcohol really, really does stay in there. So women who drink usually gain weight a lot faster. Most of the alcohol that we drink is converted into sugars, and so that is going to aid to that. And so there's just, I really can't find any good reason to have a glass of wine. We hear studies about how wine has resveratrol, which can be healthy, but that's because it comes from the red grapes. You can get the resveratrol from your grapes. And to get the positive benefits from the wine, you would have to drink like a case of wine a night to get the benefits of the resveratrol. However, you drink a case of wine at night, you're dead, and you killed everything else in your body. And so we have to look at these studies and go, wait a minute, something's not quite right. Now, we didn't even get to the effects of alcohol on the gut. And so that's something we can discuss next time, because I'm running out of time, and I saw that there were several other questions. So I want to make sure that I hit all of them. And so please, please, please ask more questions. I am so excited that you asked questions this time, because y'all know I love to hear from you. I love, love, love it. So how does the castor oil work? Great. What foods support a healthy liver? Real whole foods. organic because we don't want any more chemicals, but real whole foods and bitter. So bitter foods helps it's doing something like taking bitters. These are digestive bitters. You can get different flavors. This is from Urban Moonshine. I really like that company. Once again, medical disclaimer, do your own due diligence. But taking some bitters before a meal, chewing on some greens before a meal, eating foods that are bitter. Here in America, we like foods that are sweet. We're even cross breeding or hybridizing, I think is the right word, our foods to make them sweeter. Apples today are sweeter than they were than heirloom apples and stuff like that. We need to start eating more of the bitter foods. Think of dandelion, think of chicory, think of your more bitter greens like an endive. Those are very bitter. Those are wonderful for stimulating the bile and thinning out the bile. So the bile is what helps us break down fats. We need those bile salts. So back to thyroid. If you have a thyroid condition, then that can really affect how bile is released. Most people with a thyroid condition have very sluggish bile, which means they're not breaking down their fats, which means they're not absorbing their fat-soluble vitamins, and more likely to have gallstones. And you can have gallstones in the gallbladder. You can also have gallstones in the liver as well. And so we want to eat those bitter foods to help with that. We want to use the castor oil packs to help with that too. And I keep going off on a tangent there. So then I love this Greek seasoning. Thank you so much for sending a picture of the ingredients. I love that you have the label, but I really, really love that you have the picture of the ingredients. And I love that Lily Walter, I know who you are too. You were suggesting some other things as well. So one of the easiest things that I make my own Greek seasoning. I know that's probably not what you wanted to hear. If I were to buy one, I would probably buy one from Simply Organic or something like that. But I love that you posted the picture here. Number one ingredient is salt and pepper, really. And 3 is cornstarch. So the cornstarch is to keep it from all separated, but really, I can't believe that they put that in there. So number 1, 2, and 3, the most of this is made up of cornstarch, salt, and pepper. So you could always look at the MSG. Oh my gosh, and the natural flavoring, there's really not much in here that's healthy, is there? So one of my favorite websites to go to if I want to create a seasoning mix really quick and easy, which I do this quite often, is I have no idea who the person is who runs this website. I have no affiliation with them, but I think it's called Cooking with Pennies. And they have an Italian blend. They have a Greek blend. It's just, I really do like their seasoning mixes. I can also post one here for you too, but I still think I like hers better. So if you go, I'll find it and I'll stick it in the comments so that you can see it. I know it's much easier to buy one. If I were to buy one, though, I would buy probably something like a Simply Organic, something that I know is the ingredients are organic. I like the glass bottles, even though it's better to store your herbs not in a glass bottle. You want a dark bottle because they are exposed to the light and they degrade quickly. But I like the glass bottles because herbs are green, and when they're dried, they should still have a green color. And so in another video, I showed a picture of some oregano that Shane bought. And he bought it and I handed it to me and I went, what the heck is this? It was oregano and it was yellow. It's like, it was either dried way too hot or it was really old. Either way, I don't want herbs that are yellow. They need to look the color that they should look. But I don't see any other questions. I think it's mostly photos, and thank you, Lily Water, for answering her there. And if anybody else has other suggestions for a Greek seasoning mix, that would be fabulous. And I'll post one in the comments. Anyway, I am way over today. Thank you for your questions. If you have more questions, follow-up questions, please post them in here. If you have something else you'd like to talk about next week, I want to hear that too. Everyone have a fabulous week.